All right, guys. So today we are going to take a very condensed look at the election of 1960 itself. We've met John F. Kennedy already. We've met Richard Nixon already. Now let's see how this election pans out. As you guys already know, both of these men end up president at one point in time, but maybe you don't know who won this one quite yet. So the election of 1960 is an interesting one because it's actually the first election in which all 50 states participated within the election, and it's the last election that Washington, D.C. did not participate for electoral votes. When we look at the election of 1960, Richard Nixon really was the front runner for the Republican Party right out of the gate. He had been the vice president for popular war hero Dwight Eisenhower for 8 years. On the other hand, John F. Kennedy had to overcome a couple different candidates. He defeated Lyndon B. Johnson, who will eventually choose to be his running mate, and popular U.S. Congressman Hubert Humphrey. And eventually JFK will get the nomination there as well. And this election in 1960, guys, is really going to focus on one thing, and it's the Cold War. It's the height of the Cold War. It's 1960, and we're in the middle of this arms race, and that's what we're going to focus on. Okay, so what JFK really does throughout this entire campaign is that he takes the angle that the Eisenhower administration had fallen behind the Soviet Union in the space race and technology, really in everywhere, education. He said we had fallen behind the Soviet Union and we are not going to be able to catch up. We need somebody that can do that. And that person was him. He promised change. He focused on how he would have been the second youngest president ever to assume office or to take office, the first being Teddy Roosevelt. He said, this is a time of change. Let's get America moving in a different direction. Later on, you'll hear in his inaugural him say that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans. While Nixon, he decided to take the pretty common route that Republicans had for the last 30 years, really, when they had won and said that he was going to continue peace and prosperity. And if it's not broken, why fix it type of thing. He said that Kennedy was too young to deal with the Cold War threat. He thought that he was inexperienced and kind of a daddy's boy, Dwight Eisenhower kind of referred to him as. So, one of the most memorable things about this specific election is that it is the first time that during a campaign or during an election that we saw live televised debates. In today's day and age, we know that we watch them all the time in election years, but this is the first time that we'll actually see the candidates going head to head. It is going to be very different from just listening on the radio. And if you watch the videos I'm going to share with you on Google Classroom, you'll see that it's a lot more polite and less extreme than the campaigns or the debates you would see today. So what I'm getting at here, I guess, is that the two main ways of listening to these candidates on the debates were obviously television and then through the radio. Television is still kind of in its early days, and the radio has been established really since the 1920s. Now, what we notice is that when surveyed, the people that had watched the debates on television thought that John F. Kennedy had made better points. They thought that he was the better candidate. Now, when the people that listened to the radio listened to the debates, they thought that Nixon had done a better job of answering the questions. So, what does that tell us? It tells us that adding that extra sense, vision, is going to be incredibly important. When you watch the debates that I'll share with you, Kennedy is a young, handsome, well tanned guy. He looks very calm and collected. He looks like he's done this before. Nixon, on the other hand, he looks jittery. You can see sweat beating up on his forehead. He does some nervous movements. And people see that. People notice that right away. Um, John F. Kennedy knew that if he could get Nixon on television, that he would have his way with him. And in fact, he was quoted saying something along those lines about it. So I do want you to remember that. I do want you to watch the videos that I share with you. We know that in today's day and age, marketing and the visual effect of something is so important. And John F. Kennedy was probably just a little bit before his time when it came to knowing how important that was. He knew how to utilize what he had going for him. Now, the election would end up being one of the closest elections in United States history. John F. Kennedy would end up winning the election of 1960. The popular vote was 49.72% to 49.55%. Extremely close. Now, the electoral votes was 303 to 219 votes. So this was a very closely contested election. With John F. Kennedy winning this election, America is going to shift in this new direction. It is this young group of Americans that now see themselves of being in charge. Richard Nixon is not going to go away, though. Okay, he will lose this election. He will go back to California and run for governor. And he loses that election too. And a lot of times we thought that that was the end of Richard Nixon. But that's simply not the case. Well, we're going to learn more about Richard Nixon later. He sticks around for a very long time. I hope that you guys watch the videos that I share with you and answer the questions that I've posted. Stay safe out there.